What's going on, everyone? So, Rob Pelinka absolutely deserves a victory lap. He should be bowing right now, and for the absolute Houdini act that he did and able to get this roster together. I mean, dude, the guy deserves all the flowers he's got, right? The guy put together a ridiculously deep roster, a roster that is undoubtedly a contender and is going to be one of, at worst, the top five teams in the league, right? You think Boston, Milwaukee, the Nuggets, the Suns, if they work out, and the Lakers. No particular order, but those are going to end up being the top five teams in the league. Now, could Sacramento end up having like the one seed or something like that because they're a young team that has something to prove? Sure. But, even if they were the one seed, it's basically those five teams that I mentioned, right? And with what he was able to do, there is not really many holes, if any, on this Lakers roster. You have 14 guys deep. Obviously, you have the two rookies who I don't see getting any playing time. Shafino may get a little here and there if multiple guards are out, right? Like say there's a game where like D'Lo and Reeves are out, or like Vincent and D'Lo are out. I could see maybe Shafino getting a couple minutes. If like just D'Lo's out, I don't think he gets any playing time because my guess is that they just move Reeves to the point, right? And so because Rob was able to kind of put this roster together and go and acquire Christian Wood, that was like the one glaring hole, right? We need another big man. You got Anthony Davis and you got Jackson Hayes. Like, you need another center, right? We had issues all year last year with that problem because Anthony Davis is going to miss 20 plus games. You need that guy that can kind of weather the storm and be a part of it. And Christian Wood rang the bell and showed up, and he's very likely going to have a huge role for the Lakers. He believes he is. I mean, he said it so himself that he was told he would have a big role. And I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up positioning himself for a starting unit, especially with the news with Anthony Davis, right? Anthony Davis, he wants to play the power forward for the most part, right? I imagine, still plays some center, but over the regular season, he wants to play power forward. Come playoff time, he's probably playing more center than he would otherwise. I mean, unless like the Christian Wood and AD pairing is just like really like that good, then maybe not. But my guess is Anthony Davis probably starts and ends at the center position. My guess is like Anthony Davis, first 5 minutes, he's at the center position. The last 5 minutes, he's at the center position. And then the other like 20 minutes that he's going to play, or 22 minutes, whatever. My guess is around 30, 32 minutes. He plays the power forward position, right? And you do have, with Christian Wood, his ability to play the four as well. You're just in great shape. You look at the two guard spot, you can make an argument. Lakers could use another two guard. That I get, that I understand. But I don't think it's that detrimental, right? You got Reeves, who's going to play probably 30 to 32 minutes at the two guard. You could always slide D'Lo over if you need to. Even Gabe Vincent can play it. Shafino, as I mentioned. You have like Taurean Prince, who's more than capable of playing the two guard. Cam Reddish, Max Christie. It's not that detrimental, right? It's not something that is an absolute necessity. But with the 15th roster spot, my guess is the Lakers don't do anything, at least yet, right? I think that they wait for the trade deadline, see if maybe a move ends up happening that makes sense. If you end up getting a piece, or, end up turning D'Lo into like two pieces or something like that, or whatever, or do a 2-for-3 trade or something, or the buyout market, right? Once you get, to the trade deadline and get past that, and all these guys start getting bought out, that's when I imagine the Lakers go, okay, like, let's go and acquire this guy because it just makes sense. And my thought process with that is you get the best player available, and then you figure it out from there, because the Lakers pretty much have everything that they could need, right? So, like, I don't know, if like Chris Paul gets bought out, right? It's like you could Chris Paul is probably still good enough to, like, if it doesn't work out with the Warriors, it's like, man, you probably trust Chris Paul more than like D'Lo, right? And he could still do a lot. Like, again, just using him as an example. I'm not saying, I'm sure some people would hate that idea, but it's just kind of like he's a guy that come in and make some sense, right? That's probably what happens. But Christian Wood is more than capable of playing center, but he's not really a center. So he's actually really good defending like smaller guys and out on the perimeter. He struggles against size and guys that can kind of lower the elbow and get through him. He's not as bad as people make him out to be defensively. He's really not. And he's had some really good seasons defensively. He's not like some elite defensive guy. He's not Anthony Davis out there on the defensive end, but he's more than capable and more than good enough of holding his own, right? And can make a real impact for this Lakers roster on the defensive end. And with Anthony Davis having his back, he just needs to be serviceable. He doesn't need to be like elite or anything like that. But you think of like, you're probably inevitably going to end up playing Jokic at some point, and it would be nice to get a more sizable, like, center, right? Like, can you go get, because you look at the Lakers roster right now, and it's like, okay, Anthony Davis wants to play the 4. You have Christian Wood, who, yes, can play the 5, but he's probably best at the 4. And then you have Jackson Hayes, who's basically our JaVale McGee. And he's young, and he's kind of like, he's not this big, burly center. And it's like, you could kind of use that, right? Like, even the 2020 year. And look, I'm not saying Jokic is the same player he was in 2020. He's improved. He's even slimmed down, things like that. But one of the ways we were so effective against him that year was we just threw bodies at him, right? You threw Dwight Howard and banged him up. You threw JaVale McGee and you banged him up. You threw Anthony Davis at him and banged him up. And over the course of a 7-game series, he's exhausted, right? He's only one guy and you have several, right? So you could throw these guys in 10-minute intervals at him and always keep fresh legs. And he's just one guy that has to deal with all of it, right? And so, yeah, you could throw Jackson Hayes. Yeah, you could throw Christian Wood. Yeah, you could throw Anthony Davis. But neither of these two are anything close to like Dwight Howard and his physicality and him just kind of being that pain in the back, right? And it's like, it would be nice to maybe go get a more sizable guy. Go get a Myers Leonard, bring him in. There's always the possibility of like some type of trade, right? Maybe that's what the Lakers look at, right? Like, because we're going to play Denver 4 times. So if Jokic is kind of busting us up and it's like, all right, we're struggling with him, I could see Rob Pelinka. Like, Rob Pelinka is going to be evaluating this. He's going to be keeping an eye on this. He's going to want to make sure that we actually are as good as what we look like. And I imagine also try to figure out what else do we need, right? We got plenty of size, especially out on the perimeter. Check, right? We got our guard play pretty much locked up. Check. Got your 2 superstars. Check, right? You at the moment, it looks like you have a good array and versatile type center lineup. Check. And it's like, okay, well, if Philly is busting us because of Joel Embiid and, or Valanciunas is busting us or Steven Adams is busting us because we're like undersized at the center position, like as far as like bulk goes, that's where I think Rob Pelinka will go, okay, like I need to bring in like a Myers Leonard or like a DeMarcus Cousins or, something like that. Or maybe even bring a Dwight Howard back. And I'm not like super stoked on that, but it's like, hey, dude, like any other center that the Lakers would bring in probably rarely sees the court, if at all, right? Like any center that the Lakers would potentially bring in is very likely just going to be like a specialist. We're playing Denver in a 7-game series. I'm going to throw you out there for 10 minutes a game, and I just want you to give a good, hard playoff foul. You have 5 of them. Give them to me every game, right? Where you're just, again, I'm not talking about anything dirty or anything like that, but just we all know what a good playoff foul is, right? You throw that guy out there, you let him go rough up and bang on Jokic and just kind of try to wear him down over the course of that series, right? Like I could see something along those lines, whether it's a free agent or, yeah, maybe trade. I mentioned Valanciunas. There were reports that the Pelicans are looking to move Valanciunas because they want to get something for him because they're very likely, both sides seem to be very on like, hey, this is the last go together and he's going to be a free agent and they don't want to just lose him for nothing. He's their starting center. They want to go younger at center, right? So, like maybe you do a D'Lo for Valanciunas trade at some point, right? And give up a couple seconds or something to kind of like, give the Pelicans something that makes sense, right? Like there's options there, right? There's plays there as far as like who you could go get, what you could go do. Does Vu become available from Chicago, right? Although you'd probably have to start him, but he's getting older. And I'm sure he wants to win a chip. Like, can you convince him? Like, hey, like we're not going to start you, but we'll play you some significant minutes or something like that, right? Because even with our center lineup, like you look at Jackson Hayes again, Christian Wood, Anthony Davis, there's still questions about Jackson Hayes, right? Like he's a really good pick and roll defensive big, but he's a bit of a liability on the offensive end. And how good is he going to be defensively? And he's still extremely young and a bit of a project, right? So your Lakers are going to have to be patient with them, are going to have to work with, like, there's still a lot that goes with Jackson Hayes. Like, Jackson Hayes isn't like what JaVale McGee was when he came in. He can kind of play that role, but JaVale McGee was a veteran who had an understanding, that knew his role, that was willing to play his role. Like, it's the jury's still a little out, right? So that's something else that kind of makes me wonder, like, okay, like if Jackson Hayes struggles a bit this year, like do the Lakers go and push for another center, another sizable center? Because I'm sure that there will be several that become available at some point. I also wouldn't mind Steven Adams. Like, I know he's basically non-existent on the offensive end, but that guy, rebounding-wise, offensive rebounds, and just the physicality that guy brings, he'd be perfect with this Lakers roster to just, like, throw at, like, an Embiid or Jokic. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? Do you think the Lakers still need a center? Do you think they don't? Love to hear it. Let me know down in the comments.